very much want to welcome you all in. Rutger, Rizzle, thank you so much. Let's give a quick little hello and maybe a self introduction from both of you. We can start off with Riz, then jump over to Rutger. So after you, Riz.
Sure. You guys can tell how much I use Google Meets. I'm getting the hard docs right now. So if we could keep it in here, that would be cool. Yeah, I've been involved in NFTs and crypto since like very early on, like 2012, but really sort of found my home within the crypto space when the NFT scene started. Early on 2017, 2018, and really connected with like the artists coming into the space and like the creators and the people like tinkering around with the really interesting stuff. So as someone who's always fascinated with crypto, I was always like sort of, sidestepping landmines in all these like horrible, toxic, like crypto communities, just to sort of sift through and like find information. But the crypto communities were just so awful for so long. But when NFTs came along, I felt like there was this huge influx of people who I like really connected with personally and spoke more to, the types of things that I was interested in. And so, that was just like a great combination of things for me. Like I really loved the space up until that point, despite the horrible communities. And once like there was this great community sort of springing up within it, it was just really easy for me to like dive in head first and be passionate about like the stuff that was going on. And I feel like that's just translated well. Like all of my stuff has been pretty organically like community driven stuff that has just sort of been stuff I've gotten excited about that has led to other people getting excited about and somehow I've ended up here being Professor Rizzle in front of a whole bunch of people with Async, man. I came up with No Shot and Conlon like early on in the space, like the founders of Async. So it's truly an honor to be here. And those are the types of people I connected with like immediately when they came into the space. I'm like, they are out here really trying to flex the technology, like do cool stuff that we couldn't be doing before. And I love that. So yeah, this is great. It's a long-winded intro, but I do a lot of weird stuff all over the place. It's hard to cram it in.
Well, very much appreciate you taking the time today to help lead this with us. And I know that we're going to get some really great words of wisdom from you as we move through these stages. So really appreciate the time. Let's toss this over to Rutger. Rutger, if you could give us, I know we know the guild, we know a little bit about the art. We'd love to have a little recap for anyone that maybe isn't aware of the Rutger experience yet.
Yeah. The Rutger experience, I think it started off when I was a painter like long ago. I stopped painting and picked it up recently. I think I offered people to buy my art in art fairs in Amsterdam in, I think, 2017, and they could pay with crypto. But back then it was more like people were seeing it as a gimmick, not really serious. But for me, it was like it felt completely normal to offer also crypto instead of the fiat options. Then Ethereum came along, and I saw the smart contracts, and I thought that would really make sense to be able to create digital art, like the one-on-ones, and create value on internet. And from there out, I started exploring making my own marketplace, which I terribly failed at. But in the meantime, I kept on creating art, and I think in May 2019, I minted my first piece on Super Rare, and from there on, I got asked by Conlon to participate in the Genesis piece, the first supper of Async, which is really beautiful. Yeah, I can see it in the back. It's really awesome. It's also nice that it's in Zurich from next week on. It's really incredible to be there with the whole crowd. And then in 2020, we all encountered something called COVID, and we stayed in home. And then the importance of being able to create from your own home became more relevant than before, and meeting people online, which was also very relieving as well, and finding people that are in the same boat, or in like no boat, or on the sea with no one else. But yeah, Then we found each other, and then I got asked by a guy called Talos to participate in the first collab with the guild. It was in August 2020, and from there on we made a few nice collaborations on Async, because that's an incredible tool to build together on one piece. So that's something I really enjoy doing, and we're in the midst of launching our first blueprint as well. So definitely not done with doing collabs, and I think that's also very important to be able to do these collabs for your community, but also for artists in the space, being able to work together with so many people if you've never met. But there is some sort of mutual trust if you connect with each other on a daily basis through your socials and stuff, and then from there out, a community grows very slowly. But it grows if you connect with each other on a regular basis.
Wonderful. And I think, that experience of connecting with each other is something that's been somewhat new for a lot of us with COVID, jumping into the socials, jumping into the NFT communities. We were all experiencing this kind of avalanche of NFT crypto community in a very unique way, kind of all at once. And I think there's been some very interesting ways that individuals, artists, thought leaders have been able to figure out ways in which they can amplify their message, amplify their identity, their work within this kind of tidal wave and avalanche of creation of different voices rushing in to find their kind of footing in this space. And both of you have been able to do a very unique job at being able to wade through these communities, be able to structure your own paths, and to have this steady footing in your approach in your career. So this might be a great time then to branch from what Rutger mentioned into really that kind of the beginning stages, how you started to attract audiences, how you started to communicate. I think there's a lot of lessons to be learned for our community right now who are starting these stages off. So let's just jump back. If both of you can remember those very early days of community building, and I'm sure it didn't even start as community building per se. It started probably just as making friends and being part of the community. But maybe Ryan, if you could just start off and talk to us a little bit about some of the processes and when you started to realize that you were actually clicking and building something and starting to form a personalized community, and how you went from that jump of being an engaged fan member within this space to actually starting to kind of herd cats under your Rizzle identity. So let's go from that, then we'll toss it over to Rutger as well.
Yeah, dude, you summed it up very well, honestly. This is sort of surreal doing this, like being brought on to speak on community building, because being good at this was very much an organic byproduct of just being a really passionate community member. And then one thing just led to another. Like I was saying before, the space is really exciting to me. So, and I don't really have a hard time talking, as a lot of people know. So very early on, my buddy Matt and I started a podcast, just to record a conversation, because we were so excited about everything that was going on. And we were just like, someone should be talking about this. Let's hang out and let's talk about it. We can have guests on sometimes or whatever, but it was never really with any intention beyond like, this is exciting. Let's talk about it and can use this as a vehicle to connect with other people who are excited about it. And we started doing these like weekly meetups for the same thing. Like it was almost like almost self-indulgent in a way, because we were using these vehicles as a way to educate ourselves and bring other people and other minds in that we could learn from. And it almost became like this thing is like, hey, like so-and-so is doing something really cool. Well, how do we meet them? Well, we got this podcast. Let's see if they want to come on the podcast and talk to us. And so it was really very much like you said, like just, people, a small collective of people who are really passionate about the community. But then you've got this layer of technology on it that's really cool. And so if you hang out long enough and you love this space as much as some of us do, eventually you meet a little bit of everybody. You meet developers, you meet creators, you meet builders, you meet artists, and these people, become friends of yours. And, it's become possible for me over the years to just sort of string together a lot of these pieces. Like, hey, I got a cool idea. I know, I see Brookhawks in the audience. I see Trizzlets in the audience here. I'm like, yo, let's pull them in. They both have very unique talents. If we pull someone else in, we can really do something really interesting and cool. And that sort of mentality has boded really well for me in terms of what has become known as, what has resulted in community building. But it's been very interesting, man, as the, over the course of the past year and a half or so, when the space like really blew up, I've become knowledgeable about a type of community builder who a lot of other like big name corporations and companies and people are familiar with when they think of community builders. And so like suddenly when the space blew up, for example, I find myself on Twitter Spaces with like Floyd Mayweather, and like the lead singer from One Direction is hitting me up, like asking me on NFT selling strategies, and Carlos Mencia is like in my DMs, and all these people are asking me questions about building communities. I end up in meetings with these people and come to find out that like, a lot of these venture capitalists, a lot of these companies who are making big moves within the space, they like hire these communities in a can. They pay a certain amount of money, and that's how you build a community. You pay money, and so marketing agency comes in and they're like, we're going to get you 5,000 Discord followers. We're going to get you 5,000 Twitter followers. We're going to, get you so many hits on your PR campaign, X amount of people talking about it. This will cost you this much money. And then you say, yes, I want a community. Do that. And so that was like a really bizarre awakening for me once I realized that was how a lot of these big players operate, as someone who had like really scratched and clawed to build like the tight following that I have up until this point. But it didn't feel like scratching and clawing. It didn't feel like community building. It just sort of seemed like a byproduct of, what I had always been doing. But then it's cool. Like it sort of becomes like a feedback loop. Like, I appreciate their support. They think what I'm doing is cool. That leads to me wanting to do more cool things for them, which in turn, like, keeps the flywheel spinning, the feedback loop. They love that, and so that's the only way I know how to do it, where it's like a very organic, like reciprocal type of thing. And if I'm not feeling it, I feel like it shows. And so I've learned over time to really involve myself with stuff I love, and that happens to be contagious over time.
Brilliant. Love it. We're going to toss the same question over to Rutger there. Let's talk about how you started to build your early kind of engagement or attracting that community on your end.
Yeah, I think I was kind of lost in Twitter. I was posting things on Instagram, doing things on something called Facebook, but I'm not sure if it's still Facebook. Never mind. I think I got my Twitter account in 2009, but I didn't do anything with it because there was nothing to it. And then I stumbled upon the crypto art community, and that's really lively in Twitter, on Twitter. And then from there on, I got into the different discords of different platforms. I think my first one was Super Rare, and then after that it's Async, and then a few others which I deleted, which I'm not sure of who they even were. But I started to see connections for other artists that could participate in something that a platform was doing, or I was like connecting people together. And I think that's my engagement with the community. And from there on, because I sort of made the links with other stuff, other people, other platforms, other ways of working. And from there on, people like hooked me up with other stuff and other people. So it was some sort of, like you said, contagious. If you do something for someone else, they are likely to do something back for you. And from there on, it grows. And yeah, I think that was my start. I was like literally, no one, and now I feel I'm someone finally.
Well, it's really cool because I think when we actually break these down into, attract, engage, retain, and grow, the correlation that I've listened to you as well as Rizzle is attract sometimes isn't how to attract others to you. It's identifying what you're attracted to yourself and
Yeah.
jumping into those communities. And then that engagement actually kicks in to that next stage. You don't just become a passive engage or kind of listener, but you start to engage in what you're attracted to.
Yes.
Let's open up this section now to a couple of community questions just about the experience of attraction and to begin with. So if anybody does have a question, feel free, raise your hand up there. We'll call out the name. You can ask your question and then we'll kind of move through that way. Keep it very relaxed. But if anybody has a question at this stage, feel free, just raise that hand up and we'll call your name out. Otherwise, we'll dig in a little bit into more of this stage of moving from that I'm attracted, I'm starting to learn about these communities, and then figuring out the right engagement process is the next stage. I think once we identify topics that we as artists, creators, builders are attracted to, sometimes people don't understand exactly what the right thing to say is. We get a lot of engagement, but it's GMs. We get a lot of engagement, but it's just thumb up emojis. But there's difference of interaction that do separate those that actually not only retain the community's attention, but the kind of retain the traction of the actual point that they liked, actually build on the actual conversation and add into the community. And that starts to attract a little bit of eyes and engagement. So back to Ryan here. Let's talk about if there's no hands, that is. If there are hands, just feel free, toss them up. But oh yeah, after you, Shannon.
Yeah, no, really great discussion so far, Rizzle Rutger. Thanks so much. One question I have is like, I feel like the space is just so noisy sometimes, and I know especially as like a smaller artist or musician, it's sometimes kind of hard to cut through the noise and like have people kind of notice your thing. Like what would you say to like those smaller artists who are just trying to like break into that?
Shall I answer that first? I think just like post things on a regular basis, show people what you're doing, use the right hashtags, connect with people who you think are interesting, and just try to find interaction in one way or another, seeing what other communities they are in, and tap into that pool of knowledge, and then from there on you become a figure which is like the name you have is remembered when you are like popping up there or popping up there. And if you do that on a constant basis, then you'll become something like a digital entity. If you just pop in there once or twice, then you won't be noticed. But if you do it regularly and post regularly, then eventually you will be noticed, or you can approach someone who you think like that guy or that girl or it has 19,333 followers. How am I going to approach that? So eventually they'll be opening doors, and it could also be that you hook up with someone who's also a newbies, and you together start retweeting each other's stuff and reacting on each other's stuff. So then you bundle your powers, and then there's already two. So I think that's just stay active and react also to things that you find interesting and put your opinion. And as long as you are like honest in what you're doing and your output, then I think it will come back to you.
Let's ask a little bit on that kind of note as well, confidence, because I see a lot of times people want to say something, but I feel like there's a lot of pressure on the internet where, yeah, everything you say on the internet is kind of there forever, but at the same time, people just move on from any information or any comment that really doesn't affect them. I feel like confidence level of engagement is something to kind of click with a larger audience. And let's chat a little bit here about when engaging, how does someone build that confidence? Because I see a lot of times, the text bubbles will pop up and you'll see little like ... for 5, 6, 7 minutes, then it disappears. And you actually don't ever see of that person again. And there was probably something brilliant there that they wanted to share, but there's that confidence level that makes them not make that final post. So what can people do in this stage right now to build the confidence and know that contributing a voice, whether or not it's right, wrong, or anything, is at least contributing and building that muscle memory and that kind of confidence level that they can continually, as you said, come back day after day, make a post, not overthink it, and make another post later on and start feeling comfortable with that. How did you both build that confidence? Did it have to do with the topics you pursued and you felt interested in? Let's talk a little bit about that kind of engagement confidence building.
All right, I guess I should probably speak on this. I'm sort of someone in the space who's notorious possibly for being overconfident and saying a little bit too much at times. And I've often wondered why I get away with that, and also what it is about that sort of endears people to me in some ways, even if they don't necessarily agree with me. So I think honestly it's twofold. So I think as far as like, you know, building confidence within yourself, building confidence within your work, like, you know, if you are an artist or a creator, you know, I feel like you should, in theory, be excited about what you're creating and passionate about your creating. I assume that's why like a lot of people are creators. And, you know, collectors want to hear from artists and creators why they should be excited about their stuff too. Like, and that's a lot of, you know, been a learning process for me too, because believe it or not, I was not always as outspoken as I was. That was sort of a process. But you know, I've learned that, you know, when people collect your stuff, they really like to hear like why it's cool, why the creator is still excited about it, you know, what they're working on next, why they're excited about that. And so, you know, when Rutger was saying about sort of, you know, finding other people, you know, who are, you know, are maybe either new, have similar interests, sort of like finding your tribe, finding your niche. You know, I feel like if you're excited about your own stuff, there's enough people out there who are doing adjacent things that you can probably get excited about their stuff too. And so, you know, that sort of goes back to this reciprocity. Then you can sort of, you know, hit them up. You know, I'm excited about this. What do you think? Have you ever done anything like this? So it's difficult to start building that, you know, process or community without like sort of getting in there and getting your hands dirty and you know, speaking about your stuff. But I think you can do it in a way that's really organic if you're genuinely excited about what you're doing, knowing that your audience wants to hear that too. That's why people a lot of times collect stuff, because of the artist behind it. I mean, especially with like AI art out there now, just like, you know, seamlessly churning out amazing stuff like constantly. I feel like more than ever, like the relationship with the artist and creator is important because intention matters, and the you know, how the artist and creator feels about their thing matters, and audiences love that kind of thing. And so so I've leaned into that hard in terms of just sort of letting it fly. I'm like pretty outspoken about how I feel about the space. I realize people don't always agree with me, and so I think there's another layer to this conversation where we're so inundated with like robotic sounding corporate safe playing people who are trying to like toe the line, like not ruffle any feathers, that I feel like one of the reasons why I've gotten away with like sort of being confrontational at times and being outspoken and having some you know, annoying opinions perhaps, is that I think on some basic level, people appreciate authenticity and, you know, appreciate the fact that like whether they agree with me or not, they know that I'm a real person, because some bot trying to be politically correct would never get away and say some of the crap that I do. But so I think on some basic level, that's appreciated, even if I don't, you know, check all the boxes for everybody at all times. And I think Rutger came up in the beginning with us. You know, the beginning of the NFT scene was very organic like that. Like, you know, people approaching each other individually, respecting each other's personalities, like, you know, appreciating each other's authenticity. And I think a lot of the people who have been here for a long time still carry that like similar mantra.
Wonderful. Rutger, would you like to chat at all on that at all?
Well, there was a lot that you went over. So which specific topic do you want me to hit on?
Well, let's talk about that confidence building. What made you feel confident about kind of jumping in there and tapping into just knowing that your voice is a voice that should be heard in the space? The points that you have are worthy of being listened to. What gave you the confidence knowing that, or to know that, and what made you kind of feel confident becoming a present voice in the space and engaging?
Um, I really don't like talking. So I was really used to using the mechanics of the Photoshop layers and the async layers and connecting artists and work on a very like set of rules. And between these rules, I was able to really directly communicate to people what they were like, almost in an autistic way. But on a social level, I really struggle a lot with these like appearances, and it's only since a few weeks, months maybe, that I'm getting more confident in saying and speaking in this way, because I found out that more people want to hear about how it's how it works and what they can do with it on a like a physical level, not on the internet, but really like connecting with people, doing other meetups in Amsterdam or somewhere else in the Netherlands. I'm getting asked for that more and more, and I really had to find the confidence and peace in myself to speak like this, what I'm doing now, without drifting away in my own sweat, like somewhere else. It's a really a steep learning curve, but I was really I think the confidence came when I started to lead different projects with other people, and seeing the way that I communicated with them really fitted well with the way we were doing things, and the result was always like really inspiring and amazing, and the process that you as a group go through, the creative process, is also a very beautiful process. And as long as you give people some set of rules, and then between those rules, everything is possible. So you're not saying that's not possible, that's not okay. You just give them the tools to make their own journey, and then come up with a layer which really adds to the final result. Yeah, to bring it all back, I'm almost as confident as I want to be.
Brilliant. And I think,
Almost.
when people build these conversations, I think one thing for them to recognize, and maybe to start off, if you are a little not that confident with making these posts or connecting with big name people, as Ryan mentioned, like, find something you're passionate about and praise the creator of that. Say, I like this. Say, I enjoyed this. Then tell them, what about it did you enjoy? Maybe you'll get a response. No artist, no collector, no creators ever going to see a comment that didn't pick out a detail in their work and had appreciation and say, screw that. That person identified my actual hard work and focus and detail. No one's ever going to do that. So if you can show people that you focus on their work, you believe in their work, you connect with it, and you start to point out these little details, and you let the artist know you picked that up, they're going to love you. They're going to start chatting with you. And then that confidence starts to build to the point where you can also critique. I know when I was building relationships with artists, there came a time where I started saying, well, one thing I found interesting about what you were doing is that you didn't choose, then plug in my thought. And that slowly starts to build you into, well, what's the controversial opinion? What's the opposite opinion? And you start to build that confidence through being positive, being engaging, respecting the work, learning about those who came before you, learning about the work ethic that took into building everything we experience, but then identifying the passionate points in it, commenting what attracted to you. That kind of builds that confidence, because no one's going to put you down. As I said, no one's going to put you down for a round of applause. They're going to feel really pumped, want to engage, and that's going to create a feedback loop with all of you, so that you build that confidence, and slowly and surely you're going to start to say, well, I had an idea, why didn't you do this? And then you start to become someone who's not only knowledgeable, but friendly, and can also have a voice and an opinion. And that's a very interesting spot. So we're about halfway through now. So let's start to get onto the back end of the actual kind of points retaining and growing your audience. But before that, if anybody in the community has a question, again, I want to invite you all, put your hands up. We can definitely, Monica, after you, feel free to turn your microphone on and we'll hand you the stage.
Oh, good morning, everyone. Thanks for this session. I really appreciate it. I was just wondering what if you get burnt out. I mean, I'm an introvert, so I get burnt out just from the amount of engagement that needs to happen in this space. And I was just wondering how you deal with that.
Carefully. I've had a few positions prior and jobs and situations prior to getting to this point that I've burned out significantly, and like sort of been down that road and really tried to avoid making the same pitfalls as I did in the past. So this is particularly difficult for me because I now do my hobby that I love as like a job that I also love. And it's really, really difficult for me to know when to draw the line, because I was doing this stuff like, you know, all day for fun whenever I could, you know, just for free. So it's really, really difficult to know when to draw the line. But I feel like if I don't like actually enforce my own like restrictions upon myself, it comes out worse in the long run. Like even before you hit the point of burnout or whatever, like, you know, if I take a step back and I'm like grinding really hard for, you know, a long time, you know, many days straight or whatever, I feel like by the end, I feel scattered. I feel like my work is not up to the level that I would want it to be. And, you know, over enough times of like not learning the lesson that I needed to learn over and over again, of like sort of needing to sort of impose some self-imposed restrictions, like, okay, I'm going to put my phone down for X number of hours per day. It doesn't need to always happen within like the set amount of time, but I realized over time that, you know, if I don't do that, it messes with me. And then I get in this like bad, you know, thing where I get, you know, I'm just constantly on something. And the other thing I've learned about myself is, and again, this is probably not specific to everybody, but I'm like, if I hop on the thing first thing in the morning, it sort of messes up my entire day. Like all of a sudden my focus is like right on that. And I almost need like, you know, an hour and a half in the morning to avoid technology, get my head going in a different direction, think about like some different stuff, because I'm someone that as soon as I dive in, it's like really hard to pull myself out. So it's been many years of learning the hard way and now imposing self-imposed restrictions upon myself that I'm still not always totally good at, but getting better.
Nice.
Yeah, Rutger, any thoughts?
Yeah, I think social media is a threat here, but it's also the place where you connect. So it has a double-edged sword. For me, I used to work in mental health care, and also a few years with people with autism and Down syndrome and other stuff. And I really got caught in the daily routine. I was always having these ideas of new projects, of new art pieces that I wanted to make, new connections I wanted to make, but there wasn't any time. So eventually, when COVID came, I sort of I lost my two the parents of my wife. They died in a very like in 3 months in a row. I was not really in the best place. Everything was black, and everything went down from there. So I went into some sort of blackout, burnout situation for a few months. And from there on, I decided to not go back into the day job and see if I can find a job where my mind is really like fluid, and it's really like it's not focused for a long period of time, but I can focus for half an hour or an hour and do something really, really intense, and then from there on I do something else really intense. So it's like if I got to have my sleep routine, otherwise I will burn myself up again. But for my work, it's really like I flow from my phone to my iPad to my other screen to thinking of working on emoticons for Momentum, which is also one of my employees. But I work with them for 16 hours a week, so I can fill that in whenever I think it's the best time. And in the meantime, I create art. I do projects with guild members, and I have all this other stuff going on. So it's like it's really fragmented, but I have the freedom to do it whenever I want to do it. So that works well. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Wonderful. If anybody has any other questions regarding the part of engagement, feel free, put your hand up. Otherwise, we'll move into the retaining section of the actual conversation. Now, retaining is an interesting one, especially during bull markets. It's hard to retain anyone because there's so many people jumping out, leaving the space. It almost feels like retention is actually still growth in a way, that the only way you stay one number is if you're continually adding 10 one day because 10 will leave the next day. So it's about mitigating and managing that continual kind of turnout of engagement leading into retention. So let's talk a little bit about this. We are in a very hard spot. We are with, we are a beautiful community, but we're also a community where some members are fleeting, they leave. How do each of you kind of structure your community engagement now in order to retain the community that you've built and make them feel like the space, regardless of the market dynamics, regardless of anything that's happening, they want to continue to come back to talk to you or to experience or work? How do you approach retention of audience?
I think at this moment we are with the guild and with the people that I work with are really working harder than ever. It's like there's no really distraction, only the market that's not like functioning as it should be, but it's also like something healthy for everything, I guess. Some sort of I don't want to say reset, because then you have the big reset stuff and all the other things which I don't think is really important. But this time also gives you the opportunity to see the ones that are really here for art and for creating together, instead of for the hype and for the next Board Ape Yacht Club a PFP project. So I think it's really nice to be in this situation, and to don't, if you're not in any trouble physically, mentally, financially, or whatever, and you're able to connect with your audience and you're able to build new pieces or connect with people from other platforms who you want to work with, or dive deeper into how do I make my own NFT marketplace or create a smart contract, I think that's really the perfect place to do that in the perfect time now. So I think it actually strengthens the more important ties that you have with people. Instead of growing it, you make it stronger without like seeing that in the numbers, but feeling it in the way you connect with people.
Now, I'd actually, before we get Rizzle's kind of opinion on this as well, I'd like to jump in there and ask, during that experience of kind of communicating with your audience, how do you learn from your audience? Do you pose questions to your audience? Do you want to make them feel somewhat not responsible, but definitely a member and a participant in your steps to be able to retain? So yeah, I guess, what do you learn? Do you actively try to allow your community to feel like they're participants beyond just the collecting aspect of your career?
I actively buy art as well as a collector from people, and I connect with the artists that I really like. So I think it's getting very personal. And then you can also ask other questions if someone's like feeling well, or you become friends. So I think that's very important in this time. Just being open to each other and being critical if that's needed for someone's art, as you mentioned before. That's also something which you are only able to do if you are both honest to each other and open to what everyone wants to say. So I think that's I think when you're able to being critical about someone's work or steps that he made or something else, then the relationship you have is becoming interesting.
Yeah, I think, calculated criticism is a beautiful thing because I think it establishes trust. I think there's a lot of fake folks out there. As I said, you got your GM crowds, you got your no matter what, we're all going to make it. But I think sometimes the true connections and the true moments of friendship are built when you look out for each other. And sometimes looking out isn't just saying the positive, it's also letting each other know about the steps that they're taking that may not line up to what you think is the most successful path for either yourself, your community, any one of your friends. We'll toss that back to Rizzle then. So Rizzle, do you mind chatting to us a little bit about retention, maybe learning from your community and kind of making them feel continually engaged in what you're building yourself?
Yeah. Again, this is all something that you put terms to it and it sounds like something I've been actively trying to do. But in actuality, like it's really, I'm really someone within the space who's been built up like by the community. I don't really do anything very well by myself other than string people together in ways that we can build cool stuff together, and so my whole process of getting to where I am has been like a constant like sourcing feedback, asking what people think about something. Do you know someone who can help with this? Would they be interested in this? Like all day long I'm like up in DMs, just talking to people and everything, and so it was really weird. Like, I'm someone who caught like, I guess like a mini hype cycle during this crypto hype cycle, in the sense that like suddenly, my Twitter account's gaining like, 50, 75 followers a day. And I'm like, where are these people even coming from? I'm not really doing anything different than I ever was. And what was strange during that period was that the community that I'm involved in, it feels even weird for me to say like my community, because I feel like I'm just a piece of like a whole bunch of different communities. I have a couple personal projects, so I guess you could say that in some sense that those are my communities. But it was weird during this big hype cycle that even though my numbers on paper are going up, the community that I was directly involved in and participating in never really seemed to catch that hype cycle or grow significantly, even though like the numbers were off the charts. So when the hype cycle died and all of these people, sort of disappeared or whatever, it never really felt any different other than like looking at the numbers. Now my Twitter account is growing more slowly or whatever, but like those people never seemed that like they were participatory or involved in it or whatever. So I never really even attempted to like cater to that demographic of people who are just like flooding in. I don't even know who these people are. Like I know who the people are at this point who like really have my back in the space. I trust them. I trust people that they trust. And so that's pretty much what it's like always been about for me. So retention, I've never really tried to retain anybody. And, what I have been a part of has just sort of slowly evolved over time. And I don't really think the hype cycle affected it in a lot of ways. Like I think the people who are like really interested in the tech and Web3 and crypto art and that like tiny niche are different than the speculators and the Bored Ape Yacht Club and the reason why my Twitter account blew up. I think they were hoping for that. And then I don't know, they didn't get that.
Well, wonderful. Yeah, after you, Rutger, do you have anything?
I think that the people who fell off, they just got burned a lot.
Yeah,
so they were in it for the wrong reasons, and they pulled out too late. And when they pulled out, they missed an arm. So,
well, that's one of the cool things like that we have learned as well. Like one of the things that keeps me maybe in projects that haven't done so well lately is the actual community, is the confidence, is the fun, is the hype. I think when you get very confident with either artists or individuals in the space, you start to see who the true fun individuals are, as you mentioned, Ryan, there with, some of these waves of folks that might follow you, might leave. They were passers all the time, but you do identify there are core individuals that will be with you for the long run. These are the individuals that maybe you want to put a little bit more time, attentiveness, and let them know that they're seen in your experience as well. So I mean, as people follow you, keep tabs over who is responding. I know it's natural, it's kind of silly to say, but it's definitely important as someone who's a passionate follower of the individuals to be seen, to feel like your voice is kind of heard. So always engage when someone responds. Do get back to them. And with that, I'd actually like to toss a question over to the wider community. What have you all, and just feel free again to put up your hands, what have you all seen from different individuals you follow that have been very good, helpful pieces to learn about retention, engagement? What keeps you jumping back to certain people's pages that might be a kind of a wider lesson? So if anybody has anything they want to comment on that end, raise that hand, we'll give you the stage. Otherwise, we got about 12 minutes left here, so we will move into that final kind of portion of this experience, which is the inevitable, the fun, the growth. How do we build? How do we grow? How do we become famous? How do we become 1 million follower folks and get these Nike knocking on our DMs asking us to come out with personalized shoes, even though we might not be anywhere in that industry? How do we get to building in a bear market and growing our actual voice and experience when these numbers are crunching, when they're being pulled out? What are each of you are working on, other than just your pieces of work and contributing artistically to the space? What do you do? Either of you sit back and start to think about? Obviously, Ryan, you mentioned like it's a very kind of casual experience of just being yourself, it seems, and that seems to be clicking. But are there things that you have each learned from different portions that maybe weren't market driven, but you can identify as being personally done that helped maybe spark, grow, and widen your audience experience? So any lessons, and it can't, hot takes are just one portion. So you can hot take until you get 1,000 friends, but there's definitely more ways you can create conversation to grow. So maybe Ryan, then Rutger, just tell us about, steps that you've realized work for your growth experience.
Consistency, I think, is tremendous. Rutger mentioned it earlier. I think even just making sure people know that you're consistently out there, even if it doesn't feel like it matters, and you're just sort of, banging your head into the wall and getting like one like, over and over again or whatever. On a long enough timeline, I think people, when they stumble upon your stuff, they appreciate that, and they appreciate seeing that an artist is constantly iterating, working, thinking about their stuff, putting stuff out there, and I think it's a slow burn, for anyone starting out, but people appreciate work ethic. I interact with a lot of artists who I know like hate social media, and like understandably, like I if I could sort of hole up and avoid it, a lot of times I think I would, but again, I go back to like, people want to hear about your art. People are generally interested in your art. If you're making cool stuff, it counts to put it out there. And so, yeah, I think over a long enough timeline, consistency is like the biggest thing in terms of just growing your following. But I'm like very, very like thoughtful in anything I put out there as well. Like, I sort of, I've had a bird's eye lens on the space for a long time. And I feel like, going back to consistency, I feel like it's a bad look when someone just takes off like 2 months, 3 months, 6 months impromptu, like, not saying that everyone doesn't deserve a break or a mental health break, but on the same time, I feel like, if you're trying to build a consistent reputation within the space, if you're saying you're going to be off for a month and it's going to turn into 2 months, you better check in a month and let everybody know it's going to turn into 2 months, so that there's a established level of trust there, that people know that you're going to follow through. Like, even everybody's human, and nothing ever works out totally, but having that consistent dialogue with the people who care about you and your stuff, like, makes a huge difference in terms of just building, and then putting out like, not crappy cash grabby stuff, I think matters. Even if your stuff isn't selling in the beginning, I feel like it's a bad look to pivot to the hype stuff that, whatever is trendy at the moment. And then again, on a long enough timeline, people see that you're just sort of chasing the trends. That's a bad look too. And, over a long enough continuum, I think if you put out, you sort of do a mix of all of these things we've talked about. You put out cool, like well thought out stuff that you actually think is cool and isn't, simply for the sake of, just trying to make a buck. It translates well. And so I don't think none of this is like sort of that community in a can thing that can be purchased that I was sort of mentioning in the beginning. I think all of this is like a really slow burn, unless you're just lucky enough to catch one of these like crazy hype cycles and suddenly you're sitting next to people at Christie's or whatever. But those are like the few and far between stories, and everyone else out there is sort of, out there on the grind like us.
Love it. I'm going to be honest. I was that one lucky one who, I'm sitting with people now, so don't. It's a weird thing to experience, but it doesn't happen.
Not that, man. It's great, dude.
There's a lot of luck in this space, but it comes down to, at the end of the day, you can build it. I mean, you can engage, you can be consistent, as you mentioned there. Just imagine, like, don't just see yourself as an individual. See yourself almost like a shop. If you went to a shop and the shop said we're closed on Sundays and Saturdays, that's cool. That's fair. But if you show up on Monday and it's closed again, if you show up on Tuesday, if it's closed in different hours, if it opens different hours, it's going to feel weird. People won't know when to engage, when to come in, when to experience, when to see what you're having to sell. They'll just see an inconsistent place that they'll walk past all the time. So always make sure, be fair to yourself, but at the same time, be consistent. That is something that I've experienced personally through my whole ride. Is every single day I've been on holiday, I still check my phones, make my voice heard, but letting everyone know that your hours are structured hours because you take this seriously and you're there to build. So show your audience that consistency, show that respect to them, that you're not going to go MIA, as you said, for months on end. Make them feel like they're not just their voice, but their eyes mean something to you. Even if they're not engaging with you, just let them know, like, it means a lot. You're all checking my stuff out. I'm going to be out for a while. Don't worry about me. This is just the way it is, but you'll hear from me soon. And then, as you said, do it. Rutger, your kind of opinion with regards to growth, consistency, making sure that, luck can play a factor, but you don't rely on luck to build, kind of play the factor when it comes to building a community and growing.
Well, at the moment I'm actually doing the same thing as the previous stage, just working with artists, making new stuff, and in the meantime I connect with schools and academies here in the Netherlands to spread the word, to tell about blockchain and what it can mean for art artists, for art students, and it's still funny that a lot of teachers say, well, there's no intrinsic motivation from our students that want to know more about this. And then I say, well, you don't teach it. It's like you don't have the intrinsic motivation to bring it into their knowledge. But yeah, we've got a long way to go. And I really think it's important that, like, the youngsters really get into it now before it's not going to be long before NFTs are like in everything that we do online or offline even. So I really wonder what the universities are taking so long for. So I think that's one of my missions, to bring to show them that they can own their own stuff online, and send things that they've made to each other as a present, or something else. Just connect with each other for the art NFTs that they are making. So yeah, I'm not sure if it's like screaming in the church when I say it, but I really like Tezos for that. It's really simple, and object is really a clean interface, and it's when I do a class. Within 45 minutes, I took them briefly through the crypto art history, sent them all 1 or 2 Tezos, and they start minting. And from there on, they are on their own. They really pick it up very quickly. So that's something I really, really like doing as well.
I absolutely love that. And I love actually giving them, not just giving them a fish, but teaching them how to fish in a way.
Yeah.
And they don't even know that fishing or fish exist right now. Most people don't even know that crypto and a crypto art exists. So there's a lot of audiences out there that either are interested but don't know a leader to help kind of guide them in and introduce them to this, or they don't even know it exists. They think it is just JPEG monkey pictures that go for way too much wild money. So one of the things that I do urge and kind of suggest for all of our community is don't just run after the community that's in existence. If you all believe in this space and we all think that it's going to become a wider experience for everyone, try to figure out a way to be someone that introduces the space to others. There are whales in this space, there are influencers in this space, but they mean nothing to people that know nothing about this space. You can become that influencer. You can become the one that they trust because they learned it first from you. And there's a ton of different industries, be it school, be it shops, be it a lot of different groups that you can learn different skills. And even if it's not building a one-for-one piece of art, you're learning education, skills, strategies, context, information that these groups will want to know.
Yeah.
Because they'll want to
safe
feel
as well.
confident when they enter it. They don't want to enter blindly. So if you can figure out a way while you're building your reputation to also present yourself to institutions, to communities, to groups outside of this sphere, you're going to be that influencer. You're going to pull, when they join in, they'll be following you. They'll be seeing your work. They'll be experiencing that. So something to think about as well. Maybe Ryan and Rutger, if you mentioned it a bit, Rutger, there, but before we close out here, we have 2 minutes left. Just quickly, like, engaging exterior audiences. How does that play into your kind of Rolodex there, Ryan, with do you try to actively reach out to those outside of the space, or do you try to keep it mostly focused inward?
Nope. Totally gave up.
Fair enough.
I'm way too deep in the rabbit hole to try and onboard people who have no concept of what's going on to the personal stuff that I'm involved in at this point. So I certainly engage with people all the time who are like interested, and I give them the overview, but like you really got to be deep in there to appreciate the projects that I'm involved in, the stuff that's going on. But to your point, and I'll shut up, that anyone who's looking to get involved, the pasture is so green. Like, this technology can overlap like literally everything, and it's only really being fleshed out in like a couple, more than a couple, but like a handful of different paths right now. So there are just so many different routes to go that there's really no reason that you can't, do your own totally awesome, unique thing if you can, pull the right people in.
Love it. Well, everyone, this is it. We are at the top of the hour. The bell has rung. Class is technically over. It's recess now. But I want to appreciate and thank you all for joining us, especially having Rizzle and having Rutger here to talk about community building, engagement, attracting, engaging, retaining, and growing. This has been a wonderful conversation, and we'd love to kind of continue learning about this. We'll keep the dialogue up on the Discord there. And, we have wonderful comments here in the text section. We'd love to continue that on in the Discord. So everyone, big round of applause, but also Rizzle, Rutger, really, really appreciate your words of wisdom and your time with us today.
Yeah. Thanks for having us. Thanks for having me. Really liked it and enjoyed it.
Yeah. Appreciate the nod, Rutger. It's been awesome to actually meet you here in person. Thanks, everybody. Don't dox me.
Yeah, we will not dox. And when we get this up on, since it is recorded, when we go to yours, we'll do a little smudge, get your name out there, make sure that you remain anon. So everyone, you hold a deep secret right now. This is a part of the trust building process.
Yeah, it's community building right here. Circle of trust.
So wonderful. Everyone, really, really appreciate the time. You all have a wonderful day. We got other workshops coming up. We'll continue talking community. We'll find other subject matters. We'll get other wonderful experts on stage. But this has been technically round one of Async Academy. So a little bit of a historic moment here, and very much appreciate our professors as well as all of you as classmates. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful day and take care, everyone.